Hi, everybody who would like to be a guest promoter. We've got a fun title thing there. My name's Talia. I'm one of the coordinators this year at Guest. My pronouns are she, her. I'm here with Molly and Melly, who will be talking a little bit later, and they can introduce themselves then, perhaps. So yeah, we just wanted to give you a little bit of information for anyone that is interested in a promoter role, but maybe doesn't know that much about it yet. And just wants a little bit of background before they make their application. So the agenda for today, a little intro to Guest. The presentation part of this is going to be pretty short and concise, but first I'm going to give a little intro, explain what Guest is in a bit more depth, maybe for people that have just seen some of the events we've run in passing and don't actually know much about the structure. Molly's then going to talk about the promoter role and about the branches. We also are lucky enough to have some of our current promoters who can tell you specifically about their branches and their projects. And then Melly's going to talk you through the application process. If you haven't done anything on the internship hub before, it's maybe a bit funny and a bit tricky to get your head around. But yeah, first of all, to just give a little overview of what GUEST is. So GUEST stands for Glasgow University Environmental Sustainability Team. So GUEST is a student-led initiative to improve the environmental practice of the University of Glasgow by engaging with staff and students through events, campaigns, and knowledge sharing. So you can really just see that written on the first bullet point. But really that means we just run different projects. We are paid for 12 hours a week, or 10 if you're a coordinator. So in that time, you can run whatever projects you can think of and that you agree with your coordinator. I think Molly will speak a little bit more about that in a second. But the team of 12 is made up of 3 coordinators, 8 promoters, and a bike mechanic. And Molly will go into more detail about those in a minute. And officially, so we're a part of the university, and even though we are students, we're employed by the uni, which is the great part. It means you've got a lot of resources to dedicate your time. It gives you an incentive to dedicate a lot of energy to this work that usually tends to be voluntary in this kind of sector. So that's a really great part about working at Guest. But yeah, officially we're part of Estates and Commercial Services, which is the university services, the uni compared to the academic part. And that's where we get our budget to pay all of our wages and also the budget for our projects. Okay, so that is a general little overview, a whistle-stop tour, which as someone that's worked at Guest for 2 years makes sense to me, but if it doesn't, we'll have a lot of time at the end for any questions, which we'll be more than happy to answer. So now I will hand over to Molly to tell you a little bit about what a promoter is.
Hello everyone, yeah, I'm Molly. I'm one of the other coordinators. So a bit ironic, I'm a coordinator, but I'm going to tell you about what a promoter is. So maybe I'll start from the top. Maybe I'll explain more about a coordinator, and then you can see where a promoter comes from. So Talia, Melly, and I, we each sort of manage 3 branches. For example, I managed this year student engagement, communications, and social media. And with each of those branches has a promoter assigned to it who basically does all the practical work, takes responsibility for all the projects, and basically oversees the general running of the branch. So whereas the coordinator is very much a sort of admin, sort of overseeing role, we do our own projects, but they're not directly related to the branches. The promoter does all the practical work and yeah, really gets to get stuck in, I suppose, on campus. And so, as you can see on the slide, the main role of a promoter is to contribute to Guest projects to help foster a culture of sustainability within the university community. Officially, Guest's remit is to improve sustainability initiatives on campus and beyond. So the promoters get to brainstorm basically their own ways of doing it, because a promoter is something, as you'll hear from our 2021 to 2022 promoters, it's something that requires a lot of initiative. Obviously you have support from your coordinators, but there's very much the idea of it's your ideas, we want creativity, you get to sort of implement sustainability in the ways that you would like on campus within your individual branch. And I'll talk about what the different branches are in a minute. So it's up to you to determine suitable events and goals and manage your yearly projects. Obviously you get approval and sort of you can discuss these with your coordinator and with other members of the team, but it's very flexible. And so with that flexibility, there comes a responsibility for managing your own time. So promoters throughout the duration of the contract are contracted to work 300 hours, and that works out at about 10 to 12 hours a week. But when you do this and how you divide this up is completely up to you. Some weeks you maybe will work more than that if you have a big project, and some weeks you'll maybe work a lot less than that. For example, we're all students, so we have exams and deadlines, and you're never expected to put guest above that. So yeah, you manage your own time. Some of these will be set hours. For example, the team at the start of the year will decide when we have our team meetings, or you'll have your regular fixed meeting with your coordinator. But apart from that, you can work whenever you want. You can divide your times between planning a project. For example, maybe you're running an event and that takes 2 hours, and it may take 4 hours to plan it. So yeah, you can fit it around your studies, fit it around your personal life, and that's really important because we know that being a student is stressful, and you don't need added stress. So yeah, very flexible. Yeah, that's basically it for all the technical stuff about being a promoter. As Ty said, you have a Q&A at the end. You can ask any questions, and I'm actually going to pass over to some of our current promoters in a minute, and they can talk about their branches and what they've done. And yeah, so we're very lucky today. We have Hannah, who is our current student engagement promoter, but this year that's been renamed staff and student engagement. We also have Maddie here, who is our current food promoter, which has now been renamed sustainable food and waste, because we want food and waste sort of go hand in hand. We want the two to be we want to put emphasis on them both. We also have Natasha here, who is our sustainable transport promoter, and I think Marie has possibly joined, who was our biodiversity promoter for this year. So they're going to talk you through a little bit more about their branches, but the ones that we don't have here, we have sustainable labs, which I can talk about. I can talk about the ones that the promoter is out here for briefly. So sustainable labs is all about working in laboratories to make them more sustainable. Science labs in the university, they create a lot of waste, and there's sometimes they're the places in the uni that can be like really energy inefficient. They can use too much energy, or they're not operated in a very sustainable way. So the sustainable labs promoter, this is great for a science student. You get to work with laboratory technicians and lab staff and improve the sustainability practice there. We also don't have our community engagement promoter here, but this is a community engagement branch so it's about going a little bit beyond campus and working with the local community, obviously in Glasgow. This year, our promoter Rosanna, she worked a lot with schools, with Children's Neighbourhood Scotland, to do gardening sessions for like more disadvantaged children, and she also did things like a zine workshop with the Glasgow Women's Library. So it's really about taking that sustainability beyond Glasgow. And we also don't have our graphic design or communications promoter, Isabel, here, but she was responsible for doing for making our social media graphics, and also things like our website, and when we had specific projects that we needed posters for, or for example, we did an exhibition during Glasgow Goes Green, and she made an exhibition guide. So lots of different projects, and they're all very important. But I'm going to stop talking now. I'm just going to pass over to the promoters I can see on my screen. I don't know if after you finish, you each want to pass on to someone else. But first off, the first person I can see on my screen is Hannah. So if you want to talk a little bit about your branch, student engagement, and how you found it.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Hannah. As Molly said, I was the student engagement promoter this year. So I guess I'll just briefly talk about some of my projects and kind of what my role entailed. So the main thing, student engagement is a pretty open role, I would say. You can kind of tailor it to what you want to explore, which I think is something I found really fun about the role. A lot of the events that I ran were kind of on topics that I was interested in and wanted to learn more about and share with people. But yeah, the main thing that I did was run events on campus and kind of collaborate with different societies and groups at the university, and also help to develop resources with the guest team as well. So this year I started the Climate Cafe, which was a monthly meetup for anyone interested in sustainability. And yeah, that was kind of for students and staff, which I think will be applicable to the role next year as well. and I also ran some film screenings. And then the main project that the student engagement promoter runs is in semester 2. So I helped to kind of plan and deliver the Glasgow Goes Green Festival, which is like run in collaboration with all of the universities in Glasgow. And that was a really fun project to work on. It was really creative. I decided to kind of run a series of creative workshops, and then we held kind of an arts exhibition or like an interdisciplinary exhibition at the Alchemy Experiment. But yeah, I would say if you're looking at this role, you definitely want to like be creative. You need to come up with lots of ideas and events that are attractive to students. And yeah, just be like very proactive and like good at communicating. I run a lot of my events by reaching out to societies and kind of like networking with different members of staff on campus. And working with like the social media and comms team to engage people. But yeah, I also learned a lot of really useful skills as well, like events management. And yeah, it's just really fun to be part of a team and meet people who are all kind of interested in the same thing and interested in sustainability. So yeah, if you are interested or like have any more questions, I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, feel free to send me an email or anything like that. I'll pass to Marie, who I can see on my screen.
Hi everyone. So yeah, I was the biodiversity promoter for this year. So next year will be a bit different because we're gonna have like 2 different positions for we'll have like a biodiversity promoter and a gardener. So yeah, on the biodiversity side, they've been like running a cool project with the biodiversity group. So like the main goal of the biodiversity promoter will be like to support and help the biodiversity group with, for example, like monitoring species on compost, or help like promote like forestry linked activity on campus. Also been running a species story, so like get students to write article about species in campus and try to share it for other people to learn more about it. In terms of the gardener, so yeah, gardener, we have 2 gardens, community gardens, the youth line gardens, and the wildlife garden. So like the role of the gardener will be like to kind of organize session and like encourage like students to get involved and learn about gardening. And also been working with Rosanna, the community engagement, to like offer like gardening session to like kids in Kleinbank and Drumchapel. So that would be like another activity that the gardener and potentially the biodiversity promoter will have to run. Yeah, so I guess like for the one interested in like the gardener position, I guess knowing about the gardens would be a plus, but it's not necessary something. And yeah, what else? Like, yeah, honestly, it's a great opportunity. I will recommend it to everyone because you learn a lot about like working with staff, working in a team, and like you develop also like organization skills, which like helpful like to manage and to balance like the study and the work. But yeah, and yeah, same, like if you wanna like anyone ask a question, please contact me. And I'll pass it to who's here. Yeah, well, Maddie, if you want to speak about your branch.
Sure. So yeah, hello everyone. So I was the sustainable food writer for this year, soon to be sustainable food and waste. And yeah, I would say this year kind of it's mainly consisted of quite small, like individual projects. So just to give like an example, we did a little event at the beginning, right at the beginning of the year, during Freshers Week, where I wanted to try and use some of the produce from the garden that was left over in September to make something that we could give to students. And I ran this with Marie. We had a little seedling workshop, so we taught people how to like plant their little seeds. So yeah, a lot of my kind of work was focused on getting people to understand more kind of where their food comes from and how easy it is to cook with local, like sustainable veg. Sorry for the door slamming, not an ideal location. Yeah, so that was the main idea. We also had lots of different kind of events throughout the year. For example, I ran a workshop on sustainable food systems, and that was working with an organisation called Nourish Scotland and Zero Waste Scotland. That was during COP26. And we also ran a creative workshop stall that was in conjunction with the Glasgow Goes Green Festival that Hannah was talking about, where we basically asked people to come up with think of their favourite meal, one of their favourite meals, and to make it sustainable. So it's really just trying to get people to think more about what eating sustainably actually means and how you can both affect individual change, individual kind of behaviour, and also like the bigger picture of our food system in Scotland. And I actually learned a lot about that being on the Glasgow Food Policy, the Glasgow City Food Plan.
Glasgow Food Policy Partnership.
The one. So I was on the working groups for that, which was really, really valuable, and also gives you loads of connections with like all of the sustainable food organisations in Glasgow. So, and I just wanted to say the main thing that the sustainable food promoter usually does is the community fridge, which if you've been around at the university for a while, you might remember pre-COVID, we had a community fridge in the library, and it was great. You could just go and take whatever you wanted from the fridge, and the sustainable food promoter was in charge of collecting donations from supermarkets and putting it in the fridge. So I was able to get that running again this year. It's still in the works, but in September the fridge will be starting up again, which is great news because it also provides kind of a solid like work. It gives you a number of hours that you know you're going to be working each week, which is really useful in terms of planning your time. So yeah, I feel like I've already spoken for a long time, so I'm gonna stop. But same again, just contact me if you have any questions or ask them at the end. Oh, and yeah, if you want to, Natasha, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Natasha. I was the transport promoter this year, sustainable transport promoter. And that is a role which changes quite a lot year to year, depending on what the promoter is interested in. It generally covers sustainable transport, so public transport, as well as bikes. And this year I very much took it all the way towards bikes. I did a couple of public transport sort of social media campaigns and an ultimate guide of information, but most of the events I ran and sort of weekly tasks I was doing were linked to bikes. So the main task is the bike hub, which is a weekly bike repair session, which is done with the bike mechanic. The transport promoter sort of just goes along to speak to people and to network and to help with sort of logistical things like setting up a gazebo, that kind of thing. But it's the bike mechanic who actually does all of the repairs. And then otherwise, all the other projects are sort of pick and choose, create new projects if you feel like it. I wanted to do a lot of physical events and actually physically getting people cycling. So like the picture you can see in the middle, that was one of our bike rides to the Kelpies from Glasgow. So I tried to do a monthly bike ride, either within Glasgow or out to other places in Scotland. And I did bike lessons in the second semester, so getting students and staff who couldn't ride a bike to learn how to ride a bike, and in some cases they could ride a bike, but they were too scared to go on the road. So I did lessons for that as well. And then there were a couple of sort of one-off events as well, getting the police on campus to explain how to lock your bike properly. Lots of other little events like that as well. So it was nice to have the balance, at least for me. I really liked having, like Maddie was saying with the community fridge, the transport promoters got Bike Hub. So you know you've got a regular session most weeks, and then you can sort of fit in your own projects around that, which for me worked really well. But again, it depends a lot on the person. I know that in the past, transport promoters have done a lot more sort of reports and working with the council or working with the university's sustainable transport team to improve transport in terms of the barriers to access and the making it more inclusive and diverse. So there's loads of potential, really. You don't even need to ride a bike. That was just the thing that I like doing this year, but you can really do whatever you want with the role, which definitely the perk of it. Is anyone else here to pass on to?
I think that might be everyone.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have specific questions about the other branches, you can find, you can contact one of us and we'll put you in touch with that relevant promoter, because they'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Plus, if you've got any general questions at the end, Talia, Melly and I can try and answer them about the other branches. I'm going to pass over to Melly now, who's going to talk a little bit about the application process. So, want to go?
Is my Wi-Fi okay? Just because it's been acting up.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. All right, so I'll just talk you through the application. It might be a bit different to what people have seen before, because it's not like a traditional CV. So you have to fill out an application via the internship hub. And if you don't know what that is, I think we've included a link at the end of the presentation, which we can also send. But the application asks for all of your previous experience, whether that's paid or voluntary, your motivations for applying for guest, and that includes what you know about it and why you want to work for it, and any future career plans, and then how you meet the essential and desirable criteria, which you can see on the presentation. And then when you fill this out, it also asks you to specify which branches you're interested in and include this information that's relevant to the role the most. And I would say when I applied, I found it easier to write my application when I prioritized my branch that I preferred the most, and then mention other branches that I was interested at the end. But if you're applying for some that are more related, like staff and student engagement and community engagement, I'm sure it would be fine to talk about them both equally. And then the team at the internship hub will create a shortlist based on the applications, and they send that to us, and then we invite selected candidates for a very short and relaxed interview. And you're going to be interviewed by the current coordinators and the next year's coordinators, which have already been chosen, and our line manager, who is Stuart. And the aim is just to ask you for some more information, and if we have any more questions, and if you have any ideas about guests that you want to share. And then the last thing is just to clarify the schedule for during the summer, because I know a lot of people might be going home or on holiday. If you're selected to be a promoter, your contract is gonna start in early July. And your handover with the previous promoter, like for example, if you were the new transport promoter, you can have a meeting with Natasha in July, if that's possible, and you can talk through the projects. And there's also a handover report. And then you can meet your coordinator and then get settled and do all of the admin stuff. And then we start preparing for Freshers Week in August, which is done remotely. And you're only required to be on campus from the beginning of September or Freshers Week. Yeah, and then I'll just talk through some of the next things, which is what sort of thing we're looking for. Obviously, we want you to be passionate about sustainability, but that can mean a lot of different things depending on the branch. Like, for example, some people took it down different routes, whether you're an arts or science student, that can mean lots of different things. We want someone who's already engaged with the staff and student community, and kind of knows what's happening on campus and how to get involved and contact societies. And someone with experience in event management and promotion, although not all branches do as many events. It's a very useful skill to have because it's one of the main regular activities. And then we want someone who's good at working within a team, because there are individual branches, but we also all work together on different projects. And then someone who has creativity and initiative, because as the promoters have said, a lot of the projects that you are doing just come out of your own ideas. Your coordinator doesn't necessarily tell you what to do. So you need to have your own initiative to come up with projects and send timelines and contact people. Yeah. And then some application teams from previous people and from our experiences is that it's very useful to research our previous projects and campaigns to see what sort of thing we do. And that also helps you come up with ideas that don't necessarily repeat what we've done in the past. It's also useful to research the university sustainability policies. Like I think it's called Dear Green Place is the latest one. But for example, if you're applying for the transport branch, you can also search for the travel plan that the university has and read up on that and talk about it in your interview or in your application, or that will help you come up with better ideas for what you can do on campus. Yeah, so we want, if you show an awareness of things already happening on campus, that's also good because it means you're not going to be repeating yourself, but also it means that you pay attention to the changes that happen on campus. And then it's also useful to draw from your experience to show your skills. So I'm not sure if people have come across this before, but in lots of different workshops, and I think the university's resources, they talk about the STAR method, which means you start by describing the situation, and then you say the task that you were supposed to do, the action that you took, and the result that happened. And that kind of gives whoever is reading your application a better idea of your skills. And then the last two things is it's good to have an idea of changes you'd like to see on campus and how you would do them, regardless of whether they're realistic or not. It's always good to come up with those for your interview. And then the last thing is that the Internship Hub has a lot of resources online that you can use when applying. They have YouTube videos, I think, that help you write better answers to the essential and desirable criteria. And they have lots of things on what to do and not do, which I found were useful the first time I was doing an application. Yeah, so I think that's everything from me. Hope that was useful.
So that's that. Hopefully that has helped, as Maya said. And now we'll just go on to a little Q&A. I'll stop recording. I also just want to say generally, I think it can seem really daunting applying for guest, but I'm sure all of us who've now either been part of guest for a couple of years or a year, it's something you're totally capable of. It's a really exciting opportunity. And we'd really encourage anyone who's interested to apply because it can be really great. Okay, I'm just gonna stop recording.